What happened in the Belgian Grand Prix weekend? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to XRS Plus, the official podcast for X Racing Series. That took a second for me to remember what I usually say at the start of it, because it feels like it's been so long, and it has been so long. It's been like 3 weeks. We had the mid-season break, I missed Austria, and then we're back for Belgium. You might be asking, Avi, what were you doing in Austria? Where were you? Why weren't you doing a podcast for us? Well, I was busy making strange noises at Lando Norris. So, I hope all of that explains it, I suppose. Anyway, we are back to the normal. We are back to, I'm back to doing podcasts and doing all the normal stuff. Weekend in Belgium. One of my favourite tracks for commentary, I'll say. The amount of places you can make an overtake, the amount of places to go wheel to wheel was absolutely fantastic. The only thing I would change is that it rains too much. In fact, actually, this game just wants it to be an entire season full of wet. I'm telling you now, one of the Saudi Arabian races, either Qatar or Bahrain, one of them's gonna rain. You already know. The amount of rain in this game is nuts. But yes, it's been good. One of my favourite tracks to commentate. I haven't always been the biggest fan of racing there, but I tell you what, this game actually, I do quite like it. I mean, how reactive the cars are, how much you can rotate the car just straight away on an instant, even on controller. I mean, it makes the medium speed corners really fun. You've got Lecombe, you've got Campos, I'd say Stavelot is not too bad either, to be fair, back down the hill onto the back straight. Not too shabby, do enjoy it, had a very good race myself. We're going to begin, however, not with me, but with Division 5. We're going to begin with the Wednesday division, I was going to say Friday, the Wednesday division, and a very good race indeed. I was on comms for Division 5, I was also on comms for Division 4, if you want to watch that. One of my favourite commentaries I've done was Division 4. It is tricky when it's wet, I will say. It is tricky when it's wet because not as much happens, but when it's dry, Spa always performs. Up the Kemmel straight, going into the com, constant overtakes. And obviously you can take that all the way wheel to wheel, down the hill through turn 10 and into No Name. It's fantastic. Division 5, actually, since there's so many new people to the league, we might have a couple of new faces watching the podcast. I'll just explain quickly how this works. So on the podcast, you can see you've got the orange trim around the outside of the thumbnail and on your screen right now. That is basically means one of the weekly podcasts. They usually are weekly. Admittedly, I missed Austria because I was on holiday. But they are the weekly podcasts. I go through every division and I talk about my driver winner, who I think performed the best based on their other performances. Alternatively, we've got the driver loser, who I think kind of left some stuff on track. They didn't quite give us the entire performance they could have done. And then, of course, we've got my team winner and my team loser, the teams that I thought performed very well in that division. I'll go through all 5 divisions and give one for all of those. And, of course, we've got the red-rimmed ones, which are the interviews, which I'm going to be doing more of. And I've got so many people ready on the cards, and I just need to get in touch with them and plan something. It's tricky because I have so many people I want to get involved and talking to at the end of the season. Whereas now, when we're 3 quarters in, people win their title fights. People are busy. They're doing their stuff. You know what I mean? Everyone is fighting something right now. So there's always that. And of course, the blue-rimmed ones are the special episodes. That's your predictions. That's your features with Raven and with Mill. I've had it in the past as well. That's like that kind of stuff. We are back with the orange ones. We are back with our weekly race rundowns. We're here in Division 5. And my driver winner has to go to Tim. Exceptional drive from him. Once again, a completely dominating drive. Pole with a 42.3 is nuts anyway for that division. Getting on pole, winning the sprint pretty comfortably after Brown's mistake, and then winning the race all the same. I don't think he got Grand Slam. Brown's got the fastest lap, and he did take the lead, I think, briefly in the feature race. But still an incredibly solid drive. Tim has been moved up 2 divisions. He's gone up to Division 3, which we don't often see, but I think it's because he can't do Division 4. I think he's going to be very, very comfortable in Division 3. I think he'll be fine. Interesting call by Zalagi, the brand new Sauber team principal. He's actually replaced CXDE with Tim. Suzuki Dior hasn't had the most incredible season. I think he had a lot of hype around him because he took to the game quite quickly, but he's been consistently behind his teammate. Tim could potentially change that. They've now got a completely open division in Division 5. Sauber need to be filling that gap. If we look at the OCC, actually, while we're speaking about them, we can start looking at the OCC and seeing how everything's panning out. Sauber are currently leading the fight for P7. I can't see them catching P6. I think VCarb is just too good. So P7 might be the highest they can get, which is, in the grand scheme of things, disappointing for the team because they've had such a great and rich history of trophies. But unfortunately, if P7 is the best they can do, P7 is the best they can do. They might be a threat of getting overtaken by teams like Mercedes and Williams, but we'll have to find out. I think Tim is a big part of their point scoring, and they need to be able to fill that gap quite nicely. My driver loser for this race, and I don't think this comes to any shock to anybody, it is going to go to Bloop. Now, I can appreciate the scenario in which what Bloop had done was necessary. But unfortunately, he did it in all the wrong ways possible. So essentially what happened is Bloop was running, I believe, for a P3. He was scrapping with Michael, and he was scrapping with Brownest Barnes, I believe, for a P3 or a P2. So the results was on the cards. He had already made a couple of mistakes. He spun himself in the sprint, I believe. And he also spun himself with the exit at the pit lane in the race, which obviously cost him a lot. One of the incidents, he ended up getting damage. And he had to defend from... Let's have a look at the results. He had to defend from... I know Dan was one of them. Who else did he... And maybe it was Walker. Oh, God, I forgot. No. Oh, excuse me. Walker and Dan. And I think it was someone else as well. He was having to defend from. And he had done it in all the wrong ways. He ended up... basically, he just broke a lot of rules. So weaving on the straight, he got done for. Moving under braking, I believe, as well. Illegal blocking, which was the big one. These are rules that, I mean... Bloop was miles and miles too slow with that wing damage. In a track like Spa, which is so long, so many rounded medium speed corners, you cannot do that with wing damage. It is such a tricky track to do with wing damage. He was miles off the pace by the end of the final few laps, and he was trying to defend for a good result. Now, I can appreciate you defending that hard. You've got to pull out all the stocks. You've got to do anything you can to keep that position. And that's what you're doing for the team. So I respect that. But he's done it in the wrong way. He's done it illegally by many, many ways. He started with 0 penalty points before this race. He's up to 21 in one race. That's a season ban. And it's disappointing because that is horrendous. That is horrific to get that many penalties. We've had, in the past, I think we've had 3 people get season bans. So in season 1, there was Alfie, Pistol Peter, and Liam. Season 2, I don't think we had any. Matthew May, I think, got one as well. Or Connor Barry. Maybe there's 4. Bloop is the first one to get it in season 3. He's the first one to get season ban in a long time. And he's done it all in one race. And if you look in the stewards rules, technically, if you get a quali ban straight in one race, so all 9 penalty points from a quali ban, technically you get 2. Same for the race ban. If you get a straight race ban, all the penalty points in one race, you get 2. So hypothetically, he could get 2 season bans, but I know he won't because the season ban's different. But that is horrific. 21 penalty points in one race is ridiculous. And I can appreciate the reason. It's not like he was just dangerous the entire race. Every single one of those penalty points came up at the end of the race where he was trying desperately to defend his position. And I understand why he's tried to do that, but he's done it in entirely the wrong way. You have to think, it's not... The rules in league racing, and this league as well, they're not there to prevent hard racing. They're there to prevent people getting taken out, people getting their race ruined, and for racing to be very good, but legal as well, staying within the limits. And you can absolutely hard race within these rules. You see it, I mean, I can't speak for the other divisions, but in Division 3, where the pace is so unbelievably close between, I'd say, the top 15, I can name 15 drivers who could potentially win a race this season. And it's so unbelievably close. And the racing there is hard, but it's fair. And it's those kind of limits you need to find your way to work within. I appreciate maybe he wasn't used to driving with the wing damage, so it's tricky. You don't know whether you're going to understeer a lot. You don't know where the car's going to feel more unstable. You have to find that, and you have to consider that when driving, because you cannot do what he was doing. It's going to get you penalties, and it's got him an unbelievable amount of penalties in one race. Just ignoring that race, but looking at the bigger picture, McLaren, who were leading the OCC by, I think, about 250 points at one point, it's down to only just over 100. Like, Ferrari are genuinely within the title fight again in the OCC. And it's not just because of Bloop. Of course, it's not just because of Bloop. They've been hit with a lot of bad luck. Epic got banned, and Sarah Ferrer got banned, and Ava got banned. So that's 3. 3 bans this season, and obviously that's nothing to do with McLaren. I don't think that there should be a shade cast over McLaren for being just a bunch of rogues or anything in that team. It's unfortunate they've been banned as they got into McLaren. I mean, Epic has been there for a while. But Ava and Sarah Ferrer, literally before and during their first race, they got banned for various things, nothing to do with McLaren. It's very unlucky that this happened, and evidently with Ava and Sarah Ferrer being in Division 5 and Epic being in Division 2, which fortunately Mill's been able to fill that seat, you can tell that Division 5 are going to be their weak spot. They've brought in Rabito, who is a work in progress, it seems. Rabito's race, let's find out what he did. Qualified 16th, finished the sprint in 14th, and then finished the feature race in 15th. So throughout the entire weekend of a sprint weekend, he only got 1 point. I say that only 1 point, it's good to score points on your debut, but when you've been brought in fresh and been brought in into the biggest team in the league, you cannot be doing that. And that's not exactly what McLaren are going to be aiming for him to do. I understand they needed to fill the seat. They're running out of reserve spots. Fill the seat with anyone. And you know what? Rabito fills that job completely fine. But Bloop was their main man. Bloop is the high-scoring point scorer. And the problem now is that because he's got a season ban, it's not like you can just break his contract. It's not like you can replace him. You can't do anything. You can't reserve. That seat is now dead. Essentially, in Division 5, there are 19 drivers. There is 19 available seats. There's not 20 anymore. There will never be a 20 grid, unless we bring in a reserve, and obviously they won't score points for McLaren. But there will never be a full grid in Division 5 legally that will all score points, because that seat is now completely dead. It's gone until next season. And that is, realistically, McLaren's only high scoring in Division 5. Unless Rabito comes through into Canada with some incredible newfound pace, he will be remaining in the midfield until he improves, which is completely fine. He's a work in progress. But the issue is, you can't jump into a McLaren seat, and they're going to be expecting now even higher results because Bloop, their main man, is gone. That is going to be their detriment. If Ferrari and Haas can expose that in Division 5, I think there's an OCC fight on. It's really unfortunate for McLaren. And I will just say, I do want to repeat it. I don't want there to be a shade cast over McLaren based on the fact that their drivers are getting banned. It's absolutely nothing to do with McLaren. Similarly, actually, the other way around, I don't want there to be any kind of cloud put over the admin team, the staff team, who are from rival teams, because, as you know from me, I'm completely unbiased. There's been no unfair bans. I've gone through all of them specifically. I've looked into all of them. They've all been fair, and what's been happening with all the teams. And unfortunately, it comes down to the fact that it's nothing to do with McLaren, nothing to do with the staff team. It just has happened. And unfortunately, that's come down on McLaren, cost them a lot of points. The only controversy one would be the Boltstinger situation, where 50 points were taken away from McLaren due to an illegal contract breaking. That will probably be appealed if Ferrari or Haas are within 50 points at the end of the season of McLaren, because obviously they'll believe that they could have won the OCC and that those unfair points have been taken away. I won't comment on that here because that's still an investigation ongoing. I mean, it might be an investigation ongoing if come the time that Ferrari and Haas do beat McLaren on points. But in terms of the actual bans, they've been fair, and I don't want there to be any kind of hate towards the admins. Also, absolutely do not want there to be hate towards McLaren because it's nothing to do with them. It's just unfortunate. And like I said, if Ferrari and Haas can prioritise focusing on Division 5, I absolutely believe that both of them could beat McLaren. I think it's unlikely, but I think it's absolutely possible, because that is such a gaping hole in Division 5 they've now got. And Ferrari have been performing unbelievably well in Division 5. That is a concern for them. Speaking of, my Division 5 team winner is Ferrari. Ferrari ended up finishing 3 and 4 in Spa after finishing 2 and 4 in the sprint. Very, very strong performance. Brownest Buns, first of all, absolute unbelievable. I think he's proving in the last few weeks he is one of the best drivers in Division 5. I mean, if I bring up his results, actually, the last 2 races he's got a P3. He's done 5 races. 3 of them have been on the podium. Of course, he DNF'd in Monaco, and a P9 in Imola after getting taken out. He's showing that he is one of the best drivers in the division. I don't think he'll win the title. I think he's a little too far back. But the Constructors' Championship is absolutely on the cards. It's between V-Carb and Ferrari, the gap being about 14 points. V-Carb have got one of the strongest Division 5 lineups, arguably the strongest with Alamata and Pistol Peter. Do I think they can beat Ferrari? Absolutely. But Browness is really showing his pace, really showing his ability in the last few weeks, that he is one of the strongest in the division. On Walker's fighting for the title. He's fighting with Throw Globe. Currently the gap in points is one singular point. They've got Pistol Peter breathing down their neck as well, about 30 points behind. A gap that could absolutely be brought down with just 1 DNF from the 2. Walker is on for this title. Walker could absolutely win this title. He's showing he's very consistent. He's improving every single week. If you look back to his performances from even last season in Aston Martin, when he was at the back of Division 4 by miles, look at him now go in Ferrari. He's scoring consistent top 5 finishes. He's been on the podium twice in P2, one in Monaco and one in Imola as well, or Monza I should say. And the performance is just getting better. So Ferrari for me, absolutely fantastic Division 5 lineup. They're cooking. My team loser actually is going to go the other way to the team that could definitely challenge for them in the in the Constructors' Championship, I should say. I'm going to say VCarb. Looking at Alamata first of all, not great qualifying, only just breaking into the top 10. The sprint, I finished P9, so he did score 2 points at least. And in the race, he disconnected and the game DNF'd him. Very unlucky, that glitch is still going. I cannot stress this enough, guys. If you get disconnected, rejoin the lobby and can't take control of your car, don't leave the lobby, because it will DNF you. You need to shut off your Xbox, shut off your PlayStation, shut off your PC, and then restart the whole thing. If you leave the session, it will DNF you. And that's happened to Matt back in China as well in VCarb. So VCarb have taken 2 hits from this now, and maybe even more that I haven't noticed. So, very unlucky. In terms of Pistol Peter, it looked like it was going to be a solid race. Qualified P6, finished a sprint at P6 as well. He dropped down in the wet in the race. It just was not going back up again. Pit quite late for the slicks, I believe, and he finished P9, which is okay in the grand scheme of things. But when you're probably the quickest driver in the division, maybe Tim, I suppose, but now quickest driver in the division, P9 he needs to be getting higher than that. So I'm going to say, in terms of Constructors' Championship, I am going to give them team loser. Moving on up a division. We're going to Division 4, the race that I commentate, the race I absolutely love commentating as well. I always love commentating Div 4, and I'm going Div 4 Canada as well. Cannot wait. My driver winner, and if anyone says it's anyone else, then realistically they are just dead wrong. Bays qualified 12th, finished the sprint in 15th, finished the race in P4. How? Ferrari strategy, mate. Ferrari strategy IRL is very different to Raven West's Ferrari XRS strategy. I'll tell you that now. And we'll discuss this later on with myself, with Malachi, and with Neb as well. Raven West putting Bays in the full wet conditions. He was the only driver to go onto the intermediates. And when the track started to dry up, Bays became quick. Everyone else had to pit. He stayed out because he was already on the intermediates. Everyone else had to go from wets to intermediates, and he was up in that front fight. And a safety car came out, and he was cooking. He was up in that front fight, and he carried it on to finish P4. His best result of the season. Unbelievable job from Bays. That is 100% my driver winner. You could say it was team winner because it was the team that gave him the strategy, but I'll give him a driver winner. My driver loser, unfortunately, I'm going to go Melvin. Melvin, who is one of the most consistent drivers in the division, and he is also the title leader. If I actually look at the Drivers' Championship, he's been overtaken by Jamie now by 15 points. Melvin at one point was leading by like 30-something. 30 plus, I think the biggest gap was. I'll check that later on. I beg that Melvin doesn't lose a Drivers' Championship. This is the same thing that's happened previously. If you remember back in Season 1, Melvin was in the title fight with Blake and lost it in the final round. And I will also remind you that Liam, who was Blake's teammate in McLaren, had a point gap of 50 points and still lost the championship in a McLaren. If McLaren lose another, I guess Blake won it, but if McLaren lose a Division 4 Drivers' Championship based on being miles ahead and then dropping that points down again in a McLaren, be very, very unfortunate. Unfortunately, this time, they haven't got a Blake to back them up because Blake's over there in Red Bull. It's going to be Jamie who picks up the scraps in Haas and wins the Constructors' Championship. I'll do the Drivers' Championship if he's able to. Melvin, absolutely no pace in the wet. Just really struggling in the wet. I don't know if he had damage or what, because he started 4th and he finished 16th. Didn't even score a point in the feature race. Very unfortunate. He was the last of the finishing cars. I think it was just wet pace. I'm hoping it was damage because that was abnormally slow. And it's just unfortunate, so I'm going to say Melvin. Team winner, I haven't actually got a team winner, so I could argue it's Ferrari just because Bay's strategy, but I haven't actually got one. Team loser, and this might be a public first. My team loser, I have 2, is VCarb and Aston Martin, and I'll tell you exactly why. They have been reported for collusion. Yes, it's back. The curse is back. First it got me, then it attacked McLaren and Mercedes, and next up, it's going to be VCarb and Aston Martin who are getting brought in by the collusion beast. Coatagate was actually first, to be fair. It was before me, then it was me. What happened? Well, let's find out. So there were 2 instances where Xavier, the VCarb driver, looked to let Cajun past. during the race. And this is obviously particularly sus because Cajun dropped his TP role to move over to VCARB for the remainder of the season. He's yet to do that because he had to hold on to the TP role for a little while longer. I imagine he is going to be getting signed very, very shortly. Yeah. So, I mean, he's a reserve now because Reese has come in to take the TP spot. Cajun is now a reserve. Will he get signed? Probably. And that is why it's sus, because he has let his future teammate through for presumably his Drivers' Championship. Let's have a little look. Where is Cajun in the Drivers' Championship? Cajun is a reserve, so that's why he's not there. Cajun's on 86 points, so he would be fifth. He's actually behind Xavier. There were two instances where this happened. One in the rain, one in the dry. I believe one was in the sprint, one was in the feature race. And it's just a bit sus. I think Cajun is fine because he was just driving, but Xavier, there's a threat for him getting disqualified. I don't know what's going on in that ticket, and obviously even if I did, I wouldn't expose it to the public at this time. But there is a threat for a disqualification for the VCARB driver. If is so, I'm giving them team loser, because what is happening there? Why is the collusion beast rising again to grab another pairing? So I'll have to find out. If you want to know more about that, watch the highlights. Both of the instances are caught in the highlights. One of them at turn 1, one of them in the bus stop chicane. So take a look for yourself. Well, actually, don't give us your thoughts because I don't care. But that just calls for chaos. Don't give me your thoughts, but have your thoughts in your head, I suppose. Moving on to Division 3, Belgium, and I rarely do this, right? And as I've always said, if I give myself driver winner, I will always give it to someone else as well, because it's not fair on a bias point that I give it to myself and just say my race was great, because obviously I watched my race, I did it, so I'm going to give it to someone else as well. But ladies and gentlemen, your boy, I'm giving myself driver winner for this one. First of all, I've only given myself driver winner twice. I think there was 2 times in Season 1. Monza was one, and I think Kota was the other one. And then, oh no, I was driver loser in that one, wasn't I? Because, yeah, okay, never mind. I think I've had twice. I've had it twice. Maybe one in Season 2. I've had it twice. Maybe it was Silverstone. I think it was Silverstone. So I've had it once in Season 1, once in Season 2. This is my Season 3 one, boys. Spa, I'm giving myself driver winner. Now, I'm not going to talk about myself. Actually, I'll talk about myself now, and then I'll give it to the other person I was going to give it to, because, as I said, I'm not just going to give it to myself. I qualified down in P15, running a wet setup. The thing is, right, my practice, I've been incredibly poor in qualifying this season, but my practice laps would have put me in the top 4, so I was a little annoyed because I was thinking, right, a wet setup has really screwed me here, because I was preparing for the wet sprint. But I thought it's just a better way to focus on the race. That's why you get the points. There's no point trying to risk it in a qualifying where I'm probably going to qualify the same position anyway. In the sprint, I got up to P5. Same strategy as Bays. It was raining, went on to the intermediates. It dried up. We cooked. Malachi only went from 16th to 10th. I went from 15th to 5th. That was just based on bravery. I was making some moves that were pretty risky, but I had to because I was cutting up the order. And in the race, I went from 5th to 6th. I will explain why that all happened. I could give myself driver loser actually, but I know I wasn't the biggest loser of the entire race, so I won't. So a safety car came out in the sprint, which allowed everyone to go on to new intermediates. It came out as I was passing bus stop. As in, when I tell you, I was on the exit of bus stops, and it got called out when I could have still switched into the pit lane, but like I didn't have quite enough time. And again, and that was okay because the Inters held up. I didn't lose any positions. They just held on. I made a couple on the restart because people ahead of me stayed out on wets because I got caught by it as well. However, in the feature race, that's the one that pissed me off, because it came out as I passed it, and if I'd just switched in, I would have been the first one onto softs, and I would have been challenging for the win. But of course not. Of course it couldn't be. I just passed it. So when I pitted, I came out dead last. I was running in the top 5 or top 6 the entire race, and I came out dead last. I went on to new softs, and I scrapped. I was fighting through people left, right, centre. I got up to P6. In the grand scheme of things, I wasn't too upset. P6, after all of that, I was happy with. I would just absolutely take. It kind of sucks because I think the win could have been on the cards, or at least the top 3 could have been on the cards in that scenario if I had got into the pits in time. Obviously, without the safety car, no, I would have just stayed P5. But yeah, it kind of sucked. The reason it sucked even more, I'm going to quickly make a jump. My team winner is McLaren, because they absolutely scammed this. So, and I'm fuming as well, right? Because of all the teams, it had to be McLaren. Now, don't get me wrong, right? They've had a sucky few weeks. So they deserve a good result. But that was the biggest scam result I've ever seen. And it was so annoying. So in the qualifying, they qualified 1st and 5th. Fair play, nowhere near them. Fair play to Kua, unbelievable qualifying from him. In the sprint, they finished 9th and 12th, and I finished 5th. I cut through them super quick. It was calm. Then in the sprint race, in the feature race, right, I was up in that front fight. CGM was running around P9. He was in the scrap for P9 just behind me, pretty much. I say just behind me, like outside of DRS. He wasn't in that front fight. He was outside of DRS, Bev. And Kua was running 13th because of his poor sprint result, because he finished down in 12th. He was down in P13 before the safety car came out. Safety car comes out. Everyone in the top 8 goes in. Everyone in the top 8 has to go past the pit lane. So a couple of them stay out on the hards. A couple of us go into the pits. CGM and Kua, of course, go in. So as they come out, they're running P1 and P4 on brand new softs, and I'm down in P in the bin. I'm running down in P16, or I think it was even lower than that. I think it was P17 actually. Well, they're up at the front, and they were nowhere near the fight for the win. They ended up finishing 1st and 5th, whereas I finished 6th, and they weren't even anywhere near the win fight. That's why it annoyed me. I'm giving them team winner because fair play on the result, but absolute bollocks. And I will hold that to the end, because that was actually, if I just reacted a bit quicker, I could have just cut the pit lane. Like, no one would have seen. I should have just cut the pit lane and hope that no one reported me. I should have just cut the pit lane, and I think I would have been on the cards for a podium, or maybe a win. I mean, a win's a bit of a stretch, but I mean, a podium for sure. And of course, it had to be McLaren as well. Of course, of all the teams, it had to be McLaren. Our challenges in the Constructors' Championship, but never mind. I'm giving them team winner because fair play, they got lucky, but absolute bollocks. Anyway, driver win, I'm giving it to myself. That was my best race of the season, maybe China, but best race of the season in my eyes. I think I found a new form. I think I found my old form, actually, not a new form. I found my old form. Poor qualifying, but what I'm known for is cutting through in the race, and I think I did that a couple times, actually, especially at the end. I had 4 laps to go. I went from 17th to 6th or something, on pace. You know, and that took bravery. I was fuming, and Raven was calming me down and saying, like, let's just do this. Let's cut through one by one. My actual driver winner, because I can't give it to myself, I've got 2 in mind. First of all, I'm going to give it to Dom. Fair play. So, Dom qualified 14th, an unusually poor qualifying from him. Finished the sprint race in 16th. He was really struggling. And up to P2 in the race. Of course, he was one of the ones that got through on the little scammy pit stop. But fair play. 16th to 2nd. Very, very good. He's on for the title fight. And he's absolutely a favourite to win it. Sauber would be very happy with their first drivers. I think it's their first drivers' championship. Let me check. Yes, it would be their first drivers' championship. So fair play. Fair play to him. He deserves it. And the other one I wanted to mention was Ransdale. Fair play. I don't think people understand how quick Ransdale is. I think if he hadn't missed races, he'd be in the title fight. Without a doubt. Qualified P3. Fair play. The sprint in P6, I know he got stuck in some issues. In the race, I, in my mirrors, watched him get absolutely torpedoed by Oberwolf. And something else happened to him as well. I think he managed, again, another person who managed to pit in that scammy pit stop before me. So he managed to jump me through the pit stops. He was behind me originally. But something else bad happened to him. I forgot what it was. But he made his way back up to P4. So fair play. I genuinely think that Ransdale's quickest in the division. I think that if he'd done all the races, wins the title. And I will stand by that. I don't think he will, because I think he's too far back. And I think that those missed races... How many has he missed, actually? Let's have a look at his results. Sorry, Ransdale, I know you're watching this, but I'm just going to have an analysis on your results. So Australia P8, spot on the last lap. China P7, Saudi DNF, Spain P8, forgot to set up. Then he missed 2 races in Imola and Monaco. And then the last 3 results he's had, P2, P3, P4. So he's found his front form. He's got unlucky in Australia for spinning and unlucky in Spain for forgetting his setup. I think he could be in the title fight, but I don't think he is because he's not quite close enough in points because of those missed races. If he does all the races, then maybe, but 44 points away. He's on equal points to me. 44 points away is quite far. I know I'm not winning the title because I'm too busy qualifying P75, but yeah, I rate Ransdale. I think he probably is the best driver in the division. I think missing races has kind of stiffed him. So fair play to him. He gets half driver winner. I'm going to give it to Dom. My driver loser, I am absolutely going to give it to Liam. First of all, unbelievable qualifying. Liam has an ability to just pop out of nowhere in qualifying. sometimes. If you remember back in Spain, where he was just P4 for absolutely no reason, he was just there. And he done it again, qualified P2 in Spa. He nearly got a pole. If he'd got a pole in Division 2, that would have been, Division 3, sorry, that would have been nuts. But P2 in qualifying, unreal. I qualified his teammate as well, which is huge. In the sprint race, he was running very well. I mean, he was leading for quite a while as well. And then at the end, when the safety car came out, he just dropped. He just dropped down the order. In fact, I got him a bust up on the last lap. And he ended up finishing 7th. I finished 5th. So, very unlucky at the sprint. And then in the race, I think he DNF'd the pits. I think he got taken out and then just gave up. So, a really unlucky race after what should have realistically been a front-running fight. And he's just got unlucky in the sprint. And when you get unlucky in the sprint, especially that late as well, you're starting in the midfield. It's basically just neutralised your entire efforts for the whole of the sprint. You're just stuck down in the midfield for no reason when you were fighting at the front the whole time. So I feel for Liam. It sucks, and he's had another unlucky race. And then finally, my team loser, Aston Martin, double DNF. I mean, there's not much more to say. They qualified. There's both two new drivers as well. Qualified 9th and 17th. Finished the sprint, double DNF, the only two that DNF. And I believe they crashed into each other as well in the sprint and then the race. Or maybe that was the race, actually. And in the race, they double DNF as well. Just no points, just dead. I mean, I think one of them left the league as well. Just ass, mate. Stinky, stinky. Right, moving on to Division 2. Division 2 is where it's at. This is obviously when I went on holiday, so everything I know about this race, I've done based on the highlights and based on results. If I get something wrong, apologies, but you can just tell me in the comments if I got something wrong. Driver winner, Matteo Manga, proving he's got unbelievable pace, absolutely in the title fight, staying off track limits where it really mattered, and it's going to be between him and Skiz. I didn't see him approaching, but he's absolutely going to be a threat in the title fight. We all know he's a very accomplished driver, and now he's going for a title. I think that's very fair. Actually, interesting that he was originally in McLaren, got dropped by McLaren, and now he's fighting the McLaren for the title. Which, in fairness, he wouldn't have been if Epic hadn't got banned and Astrid hadn't gone up. So it would have been. I mean, maybe it would have been a four-way fight, maybe. But it's interesting to think, because I mean, Skiz wasn't even in Division 3. He was in Division 3 at the start of the season. He wasn't even in Division 2. So, just a weird scenario, isn't it? This all come together. So yeah, that's fair. I mean, my team winner is going to be going to Red Bull. Scoring a 1-2 is very, very strong. Getting 3 and 6 as well in qualifying. Division 2 is incredibly close. If you think to the names like Cintium, to the Bird, to the 2 Ferraris. Of course, Casper wasn't there, but he's in that fight as well. So Alfonso as well, he's up in that top fight. Division 2 is as close as you'd, I'm sure, expect it to be. And I think that Red Bull have done very well. To score a 1-2 in this scenario is a perfect situation. And it's a big bag of points for what they exactly what they need to be doing for their OCC fight as well. I mean, actually, let's have a look at Constructors fight in Division 2. How's that looking? So Red Bull are currently running 3rd. It's led by McLaren and Haas, then Red Bull. I don't see why Red Bull couldn't challenge for that, actually. I absolutely think they could challenge for Constructors there. That would be their first Constructors Championship. Currently, Red Bull have absolutely no silverware. You could argue that they won the drivers back in Season 1 in Div 4, but obviously Blake, that's gone to McLaren because he was in there for a far, far longer time. The only teams that have ever won a Constructors Championship are Sauber, VCarb, McLaren, Haas, and Ferrari. Drivers being VCarb, McLaren, and Ferrari. Haas haven't won one, actually, and neither has Sauber. So we could absolutely have a new Constructors fight on the cards. Actually, I'm going to go through all of them at the end of this video, because I haven't looked at all of them as specifically as I want to, so we can always do that. My driver loser going to go to Dodo. Very good qualifying up in P3. He's known for his good qualifying, and I know Belgium isn't one of his strongest tracks, at least not in the past, it hasn't been, so it is good to see him up at the front. Unfortunate sprint, I think he went off, and he got tapped by a Haas, and I think that's dropped him down to P10. From there, exactly the same situation as I said previously with Liam. I mean, once you've dropped down a little bit in the sprint, I mean, it's so difficult to just force your way back up again in the feature race, because obviously with a new race, the whole race is neutralized, so you basically just got a poor qualifying. That's all you've got. And he finished 10th. I mean, it's okay, but yeah. I mean, he deserved more based on his qualifying and based on where he was in the earlier stages of the race. And then my team loser is VCarb. It's 1 point. What can I say? 1 point. No points scored in qualifying. No points scored in the sprint. Oh, no. Yeah, no points scored in the sprint. Reflex DNF, and of course left the league after. And Moon finished 15th. And then in the race, Moon finished 15th, which is the 1 point. Reflex, another DNF. So not what VCarb needs to be doing when they're in a fight with teams like Red Bull and Aston Martin in the OCC. They do not need to be getting 1 point in a race. They need to be scoring significantly more than 1 point, especially in a sprint weekend as well. To be scoring 1 point is horrific. Right, moving on to Division 1, I'm going to say my driver winner, I'm going to say, is the boy. It is the GOAT. It is Jay Snowy. It is Sniz. Very fair play. I mean, I unfortunately missed this race. I wish I'd watched it, I'll be honest. He's done an exceptional job. I know he's been struggling with this game, but he's still one of the best drivers in the league. Qualified P3, I should say. Qualified P3, finished the sprint race in P4, and ended up winning the race. First one of the new season as well, so that's always good for him. Sorry, my audio cut out there, so I've had to re-record this a little bit. My driver loser is going to go to Tixi. His teammate, this could have been a huge bag of points for Alpine for sure. Tixi qualifying P1 and finishing the sprint in P2, unfortunately DNFing in the feature race. Tixi is known for being one of the quickest drivers in the league. He unfortunately stopped racing because he couldn't do the time as we moved an hour later for this season. He was originally signed to Williams, come to reserve in Alpine. Very unfortunate because that could have been an enormous bag of points for Alpine, but it's still a solid points bag in their constructors fight. But yeah, unfortunate. My team winner is Ferrari. I think that's fair to say. I mean, they're up at the front from the get-go. Neb winning the sprint is very, very strong in the way he did as well. And in the feature race 2 and 3, I think that's absolutely key. Shout out to Josh Rose. Clearly a very experienced driver. He's jumped into the division straight away and shown his name and shown his performance. I've been amazed if he's not offered contracts by teams that have open seats. Currently, the only teams that have open seats in Division 1, if it will show me, are VCarb and Sauber. So he could be looking for a seat in Sauber. I think VCarb are looking to sign or try and keep Dom going throughout the rest of the season with reserve points after he left the league out of rage and then came back. So I hope to see Josh Rose in the seat. And if not, he'll be a super sub and come in reserve and bring in the big points for the teams who call on him. For my team loser, I'm gonna say Red Bull. I mean, it's kind of a similar thing as I said to VCarb. You cannot be scoring 0 points in a sprint weekend. Fair enough. VCarb scored 1 in Division 2. Red Bull scored 0 with a double DNF in the feature and both cars outside the top 10 in the sprint. It is difficult when you're fighting teams like Tauri. I mean, Aston Martin are more unproven because they've had such poor season 1s and 2s. But when you fight a team like VCarb, who are not bad, they're good consistently. They're not fantastic, but they're good consistently. You cannot be making races where you're scoring 0 points because obviously VCarb took that 50-point deduction. I think they took a 50-point deduction. They took another 25 for the Div 5 illegal red flags. That's 75 point deducted they've taken. McLaren have had a 50 and Alpine have had a 50. So that's 75 points deducted. They would be ahead of Aston Martin. They wouldn't be ahead of Red Bull. They'd be 10 points behind Red Bull. So the conversation is still there. But, I mean, currently, added on those 75 points to the 10, you've got 85 points behind. That's a gap of points that can absolutely be brought down. So it's going to be a game of consistency for Red Bull. They need to be considering storing points. Actually, I'll give a little OCC rundown now, actually. We'll begin with the bottom and we'll work our way up. So Alpine are currently sat in P10. Their previous performances, they were P10 in Season 1, P10 in Season 2. They're looking for a P10 in Season 3. And I hope they can do something better. They're currently 112 points behind Mercedes in P9. It's tricky. I mean, that team was left in a state after Baldy's destruction in Season 1. And it's clearly taking more than 3 seasons to fix it up. And with capable TPs in the role as well. We've had Beaked in the past. We had Failing as well, and now we've got Jay Snowy, all of which are very capable TPs, and none of them, well, I mean, granted Snowy's only had a few weeks, but so far none of them have been able to do anything major to bring this team up. I'm hoping that Snowy can bring something big for next season, but I think it's kind of exposed how difficult this league is to do well. You have to give it effort, you have to give it a lot to be a TP and bring a team up to be fighting for a top challenging position. I've said this so many times. If you cast your mind back, if you were here in the league, to Season 1, where Ferrari won the OCC by an enormous amount of points. I think it was like 250, 300 points. Yeah, over 300 points they won it by. That team, that dominating team that won everything, I don't think they'd finish P10. I don't think they'd finish P9 in the OCC now. That team, I think, would finish P10. And that is the improvements made by these teams. Just naturally, as more people join the league, the standards go up. The people who were poor move down a division, but they become competitive in the lower division. And it's so much more difficult. A dominating team in Season 1. And I genuinely don't think they finished P9 in a season now. Imagine what season 1 Alpine would have done. What could season 1 Alpine could have done? They would have been horrendous. So it's tricky. It's just kind of exposing how difficult this league is to do well and be successful as a TP straight away. It's a long process. It's a difficult process, and you have to have the grit to be able to do it. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Dodo dropped Sauber TP after doing it since season 1. People were leaving. People were making his job difficult, and he gave it up. So Alpine P10. I think they're going to finish P10. It's difficult to say, but I think they're just too far behind. Battle for P7, there's currently a three-way fight between Kick Sauber, between Williams Racing F1, and, of course, Mercedes AMG Petronas. The gap between P7 and P9 is currently 38 points. Very exciting fight. Extremely exciting fight. I think VCarb and P6 were a little too far ahead. They've got 76 points on Sauber, and I think they've just got a better lineup overall than the other three teams. So it will be a three-way fight for P7. Sauber are kind of on the downfall. They need to kind of... it looks like we know what it is, right? Williams and Mercedes have got a similar story. Sauber, however, is very different because in season 1 they finished 2nd, season 2 they finished 5th, season 3 they're fighting for 7th. So it's always a downhill slide. But hopefully, Silaki can give some energy to that team to give them a P7, and then in the future push them up even higher. For now, if they can hold on to a P7, it's something. It's just something. Williams and Mercedes, very similar story. Mercedes finished 8th and 6th in season 1 and 2. Mercedes are back-to-back 7ths. They're looking to defend that, get another 7th position this season. It's going to be tricky. I think the Sauber losing Tim is a big bag of their points gone. I think that Williams losing Koi, I think their drivers struggling across the board is also going to be a detrimental part of their lineup. If Mercedes can prioritise on that, I think of these three teams, Mercedes for sure have the best lineup. So if they're able to prioritise on that, I don't see why just this weekend they could overtake the two teams ahead of them, and that would be a very big feat. That would be very exciting to watch. The battle for P4 is the next one, another three-way fight. We've got three-way fights, and then Alpine just sat at the bottom. So we've got another three-way fight for battle for P4: Red Bull, Aston Martin, and VCarb Cash App Red Bull, whatever the bollocks they're called. Currently leading the fight is Red Bull, who are scoring an absolutely record-breaking lineup so far. They finished 6th in season 1, they finished 8th in season 2. Similar story to Williams and Mercedes, but they have torpedoed up the order and fighting for P4 in season 3. Their first top 5 finish, if they're able to do it, I think that'll be exceptional. I mean, they've done incredibly well. They've been consistently best of the rest this season. I think it's fair to say that Ferrari, Haas, and McLaren are the biggest three teams in the league. I mean, season 1, Haas were on the come up. Season 2, all three teams were way ahead. Season 3 is going to be a similar story. But I think to being best of the rest after finishing 8th last season, Red Bull finishing P4 would be a massive achievement. Potentially the best achievement that any of these teams have done. So fair play. They're defending from Aston Martin, who had an incredible start to the season. Were running P2 at one point. After a couple of changes in the team and a couple of mishaps, they have dropped down, but still finishing a top 5 after finishing 9th and 9th in season 1 and 2 would still be a very good achievement. So a really exciting story for these two to be up against VCarb. So both of them on the rise up. VCarb, who are defending a P4, they got P4 in season 1, P4 in season 2. They're defending P4 once again. They're currently 6th though, 85 points behind Red Bull. Of course, as I said, they had a 75-point deduction, 54 dropping Toby Monkey, who moved to Williams, and 25 for causing an illegal red flag in Division 5. And that was in Monaco. I do believe that those 85 points can be brought back. It's going to be difficult, though. They're going to have some exceptional performances. They don't need to be matching Red Bull and Aston Martin. They need to be considerably outscoring them. I think it's possible. I don't know if Aston Martin are going to hold on. I think the VCarb are going to be chasing down Red Bull for the remainder of the season. It's going to be an exciting feat. It's going to be exciting if Aston Martin can throw anything at them, or it'll be the battle between the two bulls. And up at the front, we have our three-way fight for the winners of the OCC. Of course, Ferrari won Season 1, Haas won Season 2, both in incredible fashion, both in dominating ways. McLaren chasing down their first one after having a record-breaking first half of the season, leading by about 250 points only at half the season. However, second half of the season, it's gone all downhill. They've lost drivers due to bans, they've lost drivers due to other situations, and the results haven't been spilling in quite as well. The gap between them and Ferrari, it was 250 points, it is now 115. If the way it goes right now, Ferrari are going to be catching them in probably the next 3 weeks, I'd say, but I can't imagine it will be staying the same. They need to be I imagine McLaren will be bringing up something else to throw a spanner in the works. Haas are 30 points behind Ferrari. I don't think it's fair to say that their OCC challenge hopes are completely over, but it's going to be difficult for them. They are kind of on the back foot now. Ferrari are torpedoing forward at a speed I've never seen before. Ferrari have been outscoring every team since Monza. I think Monza. Let's have a look. I forgot what the calendar was. Monza, Red Bull Ring, and Spa. They've been the highest scoring team by a massive amount. So if this carries on, they will be chasing down McLaren to get their second OCC. That would be incredible. What a comeback after quite a poor start to the season. McLaren absolutely have the team to be able to defend it and to win this OCC, but it's going to be difficult. I think Ferrari are going to give them a bit of a challenge. So we've got three-way fights: the battle for P1, the battle for P4, the battle for P7, and then BWT Alpine, led by Jason Izzle, who I'm hoping can pull something out of the bag and give that team a bit of energy. That is the end of the Belgian Grand Prix weekend. We're heading, of course, across to Canada. We have got 5 weeks left. Canada, Silverstone Sprint, Qatar, Singapore, and then heading to Bahrain for the finale again. It's going to be very exciting. Canada, a very tricky track, a very technical track, all close quarters, all nice, close and personal, walls barring each side of the track, and a lot of track limits, I'm sure. I look forward to seeing you all then. This video is going to be coming out right before Division 5, so I'll be in comms. I will see you all very, very soon. Bye-bye.